making advice sound better, mastering should and ought to in English. Hello everyone. Welcome back to our English language learning channel. Today, we're diving into the exciting world of modal verbs, focusing specifically on the modal verbs should and ought to. We're going to see how these modal verbs can be used in English to give advice. So, let's jump right in. To start, both should and ought to are modal verbs used to give advice or say what we think is the right thing to do. They are also used to express a strong expectation. Examples: 1. You should drink more water. 2. You ought to study before the test. These two examples advise the listener to drink more water and to study before a test, respectively. When giving advice, should is more commonly used than ought to, especially in American English. It is also considered a little less formal. However, the meaning is the same, and you can use either of them depending on your preference or the formality of the situation. Examples: 1. You should check the weather before going out. 2. You ought to check the weather before going out. Both sentences give the same advice, but notice the slight variation in tone due to the choice of modal verb. You can also use the negative forms shouldn't and ought not to advise against doing something. Shouldn't is more commonly used than ought not to. Examples: 1. You shouldn't skip meals. 2. You ought not to skip meals. Each sentence advises the listener not to skip meals, with a minor difference in formality. You can also use these modals to ask for advice. For questions, we typically use should, as ought to sounds formal and is less common in questions. Example: Should I apply for this job? This question is asking for advice about applying for a job. And there you have it. You've now learned how to use the modal verbs should and ought to in giving advice. By understanding these, you'll be able to sound more natural and give advice more effectively in English. Don't forget to practice using these modals in your daily conversations. Remember, practice makes perfect. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more lessons on English grammar. Happy learning!